Well, good evening, and welcome to BeBold's January Speaker Series event. I'm John Berfonsky. I'm the Chief of Police in Bedford, and welcome to you all to tonight's presentation by New Hampshire Teen Challenge. Just a little bit for those of you who are not familiar with BeBold. BeBold is your Bedford's anti-substance abuse and drug coalition. Your neighbors, your friends, people in Bedford that have taken their time to volunteer for this organization to bring events like this each and every month, the fourth Monday, 7 p.m. of every month. We bring presentations to increase your awareness, your knowledge, your information, and bring you and your children, your family members and friends and families and neighbors information about what we can do to help substance abuse and addiction disorders in our corner of the world. And we're so very happy to hear from New Hampshire Teen Challenge tonight, Rob, Aaron, and Gavin, who are going to talk about their stories, how they got to where they are in their lives, information hearing it not from the Chief of Police or not from other people or from docs or anybody else, but you're going to hear from the people at Ground Zero that are intimately involved, know exactly what's going on and what influenced them and how things in their lives changed, but more importantly, how they got here. So again, BeBold brings you these presentations each and every month, the fourth Monday. Please come to them. Look at the BeBold website for the upcoming presentations. They're all very informative, and most importantly, we need volunteers. Come see us. We have a desk outside. Come see us, join up, be part of your community, be part of BeBold, and make Bedford BeBold. And so tonight we have Rob, Aaron, and Gavin from New Hampshire Teen Challenge, and I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Here you go.
All right. How's everybody doing tonight? Good. So we're a lot of people here. So we're from Teen Challenge, Manchester, New Hampshire. You know, we're a 15-month residential treatment center, and you know, we help people with life-controlling issues and substance abuse. Us three that are here today, we're going to share our experiences with you on where we were and where we're at today, how tobacco, marijuana, and alcohol has really impacted our lives. Most importantly, we're here to help the youth make good decisions, to not make the same mistakes that we made. So you know, we're not doctors, we're not psychiatrists, we're not professionals in this field by any means, but we've lived through it, and we're just here to share what we've been through. So by the show of hands, how many of you are actually talking to your students or your kids about marijuana, tobacco, and alcohol? It's good, because it's really never too early. And did you know that by the age of 9, kids are already being exposed to drugs and alcohol through peer interactions, social media, and TV? And did you also know that research has shown that regular conversations about the dangers of drugs and alcohol can reduce the likelihood of teen use as much as 42%, according to the National Center on Addiction and Substance Abuse? You know, I actually remember a long time ago seeing somebody standing where I'm at, and I thought that that would never be me. Drugs have absolutely no discrimination, and it starts, like I said, as the age of early as 9. Even the cartoons that are out there now, some of them aren't even right. Oh. According to the National Survey on Drug Abuse for the year 2014, 49.2% of men and women ages 12 or older have used an illicit substance. Out of 320 million people living in the U.S., it is reported 23.5 million people are addicted to alcohol and drugs, representing the entire population of Texas. 1 in every 10 Americans over the age of 12 are addicted. I'd go as far as to say the number is probably higher. Now, obviously it goes without saying that if you do drugs, you'll become addicted. There are some people in this room, or adults, whatever that may be, that can drink alcohol from time to time, or on the weekends, or whatever it is, but it just shows that some people cannot. You know, us three, we're obviously reasons why people cannot do those things. You know, there are biological factors such as genetics and neurotransmitter functionings such as dopamine. There are psychological factors which are greatly found to exist in those diagnosed with addiction. You know, and the sociological environment factors like how we were brought up, peer and sibling influences, and what surrounds where we were placed. We're going to go into a lot of that. A lot of our upbringings are different. You know, like I said, it doesn't discriminate. You could have had the perfect upbringing. You could have had a pastor as a dad. You could have, you know, it could be anything. It doesn't discriminate. It just takes one bad decision, and we're just here to try and help you make the right one. You know, like I said, absolutely nobody is exempt from this. It's important to understand there are many culture in high school associated with drugs and experiment, and it's unknown who will be once to develop an addiction. It's like playing Russian roulette. So I just want you guys to hear out our first, Aaron's going to share his story with you guys, and he's going to talk to you about what he went through to get him to where he's at right now.
So, like Rob said, my name is Aaron. I am from Madrid, New York. If you haven't heard of it, I'm not surprised. It's in the middle of nowhere. But growing up, I had the best upbringing that any kid could have. My parents, I've been married for over 30 years. They loved me unconditionally. I never needed for anything. My dad was the superintendent, actually, of building and grounds at our school. So, you know, like I said, I really needed for nothing. I had a great childhood. I have a sister, but some of my, my earliest memories were with my grandparents, my grandfather and I, hunting, fishing, riding my four-wheeler, just really, really good memories. When I was 12 years old, I smoked a cigarette for my first time. And I just liked the way it made me feel. And I thought it was okay, because my grandmother was doing it. So if my grandma did it, why couldn't I do it, So I continued to just, smoke cigarettes here and there. At the age of, it was my 15th birthday actually, my grandmother, she was terminally ill with cirrhosis of the liver. And if any of you are familiar with that, it is basically, most of the times when you have it, it's from alcohol abuse. And, I really wasn't aware that alcohol was an issue in my family until that point. And so my grandmother died 10 days after my 15th birthday. And that's when I smoked pot for my first time and started drinking alcohol the same night. And I can tell you right from there I was hooked immediately, 15 years old. So with the pain of dealing with her loss, I really just self-medicated myself. And it got to a point where I started taking prescription pills, and that was where it all just took the next level, really, in my addiction and in my journey with drugs and alcohol, because then the marijuana wasn't satisfying me, the alcohol wasn't satisfying me, so then I turned to the prescription drugs. And at 16 years old, I was a full-blown Oxycontin addict, physically addicted to Oxycontin, going to high school every day, high on prescription pills, needing that substance to not only get out of bed, but to function, to go through a whole period in school. I had to be high. The same year, I tried ecstasy, I tried cocaine, mushrooms, pretty much anything that you could think of I was exposed to. And really, it just took my life over. I was a soccer player, functioning addict through high school. I had an opportunity to attend Syracuse University on a full-ride scholarship for soccer. And as a as a junior, they offered me this, and I turned it down because I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to get drugs at a new location, a new school away from home. So my senior year of high school, I attended the state champion track and field games in Buffalo, New York, where I overdosed actually on Oxycontin. Wasn't able to perform, obviously, and this is all before I was 18 years old. So the way I look at it, I can go back and say that decision I made, even when I was 12 years old, to smoke a cigarette, to try something that would make me feel different, that people around me were doing, that I thought was okay and I thought was cool, it altered the course of my life completely, you know. So at 18, I graduated high school, a full-blown addict. I attended a SUNY school, a New York University school in upstate New York. I went there for a semester, and I will never forget it. I was, the day I had to re-register for my next semester, I had an opportunity. I only had a short window to be able to pick up my drugs and to be able to register for classes because I had waited so long. And I chose getting drugs over going back to college. You know, and that's a decision that I look back and I wish I would have made a different one. I wish I would have, you know, went back to school. But so I'm 19 years old at this point. No college education, working a menial job. Really lost, just battling with my inner demons that I had been suppressing because of the loss of my grandmother. I now know that, looking back at it, you know, I was suppressing those things that were hurting me for so long. So I moved to Buffalo, New York, and I lived there with a girlfriend and continued to use drugs, but started to drink more, started to do harder drugs. That's when I experimented with heroin, and that was the end for me, like you could say. Heroin was the thing that really was my last straw, because I battled with that for another 7 years. So I'm 28 years old today, and you know, I came to a point in my life where I have a wife, I have a daughter, and I was going to lose all of that before I came to this program. And it's just, when we do things like this and I look back and I can reflect on the decisions I made at a young age, not only the decisions I made 9 months ago before I came into this program, but the decisions I made 15 years ago, 14 years ago, to get high once, to try to numb pain that I didn't want to deal with. That, for me, I look back and it just, I wish I would have had something like this. Not that we're anything special. We're just three guys who are trying to do right. But if I could go back, you know, I'd deal with those problems rather than mask them with something, because you're never going to run away from the pain of losing somebody in a substance, or you're never going to, you know, be able to mask it. It's going to come out. And in my case, it's coming out 12, 14 years later, unfortunately, now that I'm sober and I can see it. I can see what I've done to my family, to myself. But, you know, today, in 1 week, I'll have 9 months clean and sober, and that's the longest I've been sober since I was, thank you. It's the longest I've been sober my adult life, and this is the best feeling. Like, we didn't know how many people were going to be here. We were nervous, still kind of am, you know, so, but the thing is that we're out here because if we can affect one person's life in a positive way, one kid that doesn't have to go through all the stuff that I went through, that Rob went through, that Gavin went through, you know, the nerves are worth it, all the stuff that we think really matters when it really doesn't, because, you know, you guys as the youth, you're what matters. You guys are the next generation, and if we can help in any way to put you on the path of, you know, least resistance, because I've been fighting it my whole adult life with the decisions I made at a young age. So I just, you know, I just thank you guys for letting us come out, and that's really all I've got. Thank you.
So just some more facts about what we're talking about today. You know, what effects can marijuana have? You know, let's face it, drugs been around a lot longer than we've all been alive. Today's drugs are stronger, different, and more easily accessible than ever before. You know, the marijuana smoked today is up to 3 times more potent than the marijuana of 30 years ago. It can be damaging to long-term cognitive function, and it can also lead to dependence. You know, a lot of people think that, oh, it's just marijuana. How am I going to get addicted to pot? But it becomes a routine. You know, addiction is a routine, something that you need. You know, if they wake up in the morning and to smoke a joint, I'm sorry, but you're addicted, because the next person, you know, if someone wakes up to have a drink, you're looking at that guy like he's an alcoholic. So what makes you different between someone who drinks in the morning and someone who smokes pot in the morning? You know, you start smoking pot before to eat, to go to sleep, to have an exam, to socialize. It just becomes a routine. In today's pot, they got all that crazy stuff that I've been in rehab for a while, but I know it's all coming out, and it's all way more addictive than it ever used to be. You know, more adolescents use alcohol than cigarettes or marijuana. You know, nowadays people are picking up in New Hampshire, the average age that people are starting drinking is 12 to 15. It's incredible, and it baffles me. You know, that's exactly when we started, but it's just scary to think that the age is actually getting lower. You know, let me see what I got here. Okay. So actually, I'm gonna have Gavin come up and share his story with you guys. So, Gavin.
What's up, guys? I'm Gavin. I'm 22 years old. I grew up in Wells, Maine. It's a nice little beach town, and right above Portsmouth. I had a pretty good childhood growing up. My parents split up when I was 5. That didn't really bug me that much. I liked having my mom and dad time. It was good. I mean, it kind of sucks now, but it didn't really affect my decisions in life. I grew up with a very good stepdad. My mom was awesome. She was a teacher. She tried to guide me in all the right ways. You know, I kind of rebelled. I started, you know, smoking cigarettes a little bit here and there when I was about 11 or 12. Me and my buddies, we got off the school bus. My stepdad used to smoke, so we'd run in, take his butts. You know, somebody convinced me that if I smoked green tea, I would get high, so I decided to give that a whirl. That doesn't work, so don't even waste your time on that one, guys. But you know, it's just it starts rattling through your mind. You know, you get a first little hint of a substance of some sort, and then it's like, what's next? You know. Me and my buddies, we started smoking weed when we were about 14. Became a pretty daily thing. We'd always take it from you know, parents, friends, anybody that we could find it from, until we were able to find some, you know, guys to buy it from. We didn't smoke during football season, though. That was one of our big no-goes. But we had started to eventually smoke during football season, and you know, I remember having one of my buddies over at my house, and he wanted me to come out and smoke with him one night, and I was like, you know, my mom had just kicked him out of my house the weekend prior. I was like, I'm not going to do that to her again. You know, she got real upset, and I got a call the next morning that the 2 of my buddies, you know, high and drunk, totaled their car, and they were both dead. So, you know, just, you know, people like to burn crews. You know, we used to do it all the time. Something as simple as that. You know, you might not even have control of it, but it could be your friends that are driving. Next thing you know, your parents have to bury you, and that's not where you want to be. You know, you don't really understand the effects that you can have on the people that love and care about you throughout these different addictions that you face. Never was really big into the cigarettes though. I would say that I started dipping. I was into chewing tobacco, played baseball. I was a 3-season athlete, state champion my junior year, played quarterback my senior year. So drugs don't discriminate. I have ADHD, so I had Concerta, Vyvanse, Adderall. So when I started drinking, we started abusing the Adderall all the time, because you could, you're 16, 17 years old and you could crush 24 beers back. You're the man of the party. It was cool, it looked sick, but really all it did was set you up for failure. Those things can, they can really drag you down. It was just, it's not where you want to be. I'd end up getting in a lot of trouble. I'd stolen a bottle of Ciroc from the Hannafords down the road. I was doing 100 hours of community service. They showed the tape to the school resource officers. I was lined up to play college football at Maine Maritime Academy. I was going to go be an engineer, but my summer season, when I was 18, I just went nuts. I had all kinds of run-ins with the cops, and I decided that I was going to join the military. Maybe it would straighten me out. I thought that would be my turn me into a man, to say. And it was 2 weeks right before I was leaving for basic training. I was driving. I was hammered. Next thing you know, I'm getting pulled over. Somehow, didn't get a DUI. I have no idea how that happened, but every time I got a get out of jail free card, I abused it. The following weekend, I was coming home from UMaine Orono and driving down the turnpike. We'd just been partying all weekend. My boys were up at college. I was getting ready to go to the service. Flipped my car going down 95. It was 9:30 in the morning. I somehow, once again, didn't get a DUI because nobody thought that I was going to be hammered at 9:30 in the morning coming home. And, I was like, wow, I escaped. So I joined the service. I wanted to be something bigger and better. I was always an extremist, whether it came to, playing sports, definitely was involved with drugs. I went through Ranger Selection Program. I was in Ranger Battalion. I was in Special Operations. I was loving life. I deployed. Got home. We had a bunch of money. Next thing you know, we're running the streets of Savannah, Georgia. It's an open container law, and things just kept getting worse. I find myself, I'm 22 now. I got 2 DUIs on my record. I have, one of them was with a felony fleeing charge. I decided it'd be a great idea to run from the cops since I was on a suspended license. And, it's just, my addictions have put me into really bad situations in life. Luckily, I'm still alive. Luckily, I haven't hurt anybody through my addictions, but it's definitely canceled out some things I've wanted to do with my life. There's a part of me has always wanted to go in the medical field. Patterns of substance abuse kind of have a big effect on that. You don't really want somebody writing scripts, from what I hear. So those kind of things, it's the little things that we do that can really, really affect how our lives turn out. I'd have to say that curiosity definitely killed the cat. Once I got that first high from smoking weed, whenever I was drunk, I would say alcohol was my gateway drug. So when cocaine was present, ecstasy, all those things, they were just, they were intriguing. I was chasing the next high, seeing what it was like. I never got involved with heroin. Opiates weren't my thing. I like to be on top of the world. At the end of it all, though, I was a full-blown, I was a meth head. I was staying up for 5 days at a time, sleeping 1 day at a time, drinking, just about a bottle a day, and it just stems and it keeps getting worse. So, I would just like to see you guys not make the mistakes that I had. Like I said, it doesn't discriminate. I was 3-season athlete, I was 93 average student. I was getting ready to go to a great engineering school. I had a lot of things going, but I didn't want to listen to my parents. I didn't think that smoking a little bit of weed was gonna stem into an everyday kind of thing. And it's definitely taken a serious course on my life, and it's definitely taken a serious course on the people that love and care about me. We don't really see what we do to our parents. That's one of the hardest things to now facing it when you do get in recovery and you're clean and sober. Just seeing the hurt that you've put through your mom, your dad. That's a tough one to be able to let go. And I just hope you guys never get yourselves into those situations. Thank you for letting me share, guys.
Does it lead to other drugs? Gavin was a perfect example right there, where marijuana, alcohol, even cigarettes can take you. Even after that first puff of cigarette that got you lightheaded, like he said, it just completely makes you think what else is out there. Like I said, I definitely sat where you guys were sitting and thought I would never be that guy that's speaking in front of this many people about a drug addiction. I said, there's no way I'd be a loser like that. But I'll tell you, our stories have impacted a lot of people, and honestly, I wish I could go back and change a lot of what I've done, but I'm so happy who I've become because of where I was. But if we're here to just really encourage you guys to not make that one bad decision. And that's all it is. It's that one choice, that one time you decided to pick up a cigarette. It's so much easier to stay away from drugs than it is to stay on them. I can promise you that. My name's Rob. I'm 27 years old. I'm from Nashua, New Hampshire. So you guys are probably familiar with that area. I've been around here in Manchester running like crazy. There was a lot of dysfunction in my life at a real early age. At being 6 or 7 years old, I remember my parents getting a divorce. My dad and my mom fighting for custody. I have a twin sister, and I also had an older sister. So my dad ended up winning that court case. My mom was in and out of my life, always with an excuse for why she didn't want to pick us up here over the weekend, whatever it may be. And I learned to deal with it. As I got older, one parent was more lenient than the other, and so I go to my mom's house and I was able to do what I want. I go back to my dad's house and I could not get away with as much. And it just caused tension between our family. By the age of 15, I was in high school. I got good grades. I was in karate, I skateboarded, I did all the sports. I was a Nashua starting pitcher for the Nashua traveling team. I always had dreams of becoming an electrician. I took 2 years of electrical trade in high school in Nashua High South. Did really good at it. I was working in a kitchen part-time just to get some, I was 15. I was getting paid $6.25 an hour. I was in high school. That'd be enough to give me $40 to go home on the weekend and get that bag of pot, and then go out with my friends and say, hey, it's the weekend, let's smoke some weed. And that's what it was. Every weekend it was just we'd smoke some weed. What's the harm in that? I remember my dad calling me, and I'd be like, everybody shut up, shut up. My dad's calling. It was like a big, I was so, I knew it was wrong, but as I kept going with it, pot started turning into Monday through Friday, then the weekends, and then my 15th birthday came along, and that's when I first started experiencing with heavier drugs and alcohol, and it just stemmed right from weed. I thought it'd be cool to drink 15 beers on my 15th birthday, and I fell in love with alcohol that day. By the time I was 19, I had lost 3 of my best friends in one car accident. They were found dead on the side of the road from speeding, drunk driving, and those are literally my best friends. They weren't just somebody I knew in high school. They were my world. So I thought I'd stop drinking and I'd pick up drugs. I think since drinking is too dangerous, maybe I'll pick up drugs. And I decided to take a lot of Adderall. And a lot of Adderall because it made me stay up, and it made me feel like I was sober, like I was awake, and it just turned into one of the worst decisions I've ever made in my life. I decided to smoke meth for my first time. I fell in love with it right away. So as I was going on with my meth addiction, I was playing pool one night. I got a phone call. And it was my dad, and he was crying, screaming. He's like, you got to get home. And I was like, what's the matter? He said, your sister took her own life because she was a drug addict. Addiction leads you to believe that you are alone. And that's not true. Addiction makes you think that no one cares. Addiction makes you think that there's no hope, that you're a loser, that you're a scumbag, that you're just the bottom of the earth, and that may be true in some perspective, but we're still people. They're still people, and you can get away from it. there's so many people that care about you when you go through this stuff. And when I lost my sister, it was the worst feeling I've ever had in my entire life. I didn't know what to do. It was so surreal until that depression came. As I was depressed, I took it up more and more and more. I began to sell it. I was staying up for days at a time. I was hallucinating almost every single day. I was falling asleep behind my wheel constantly. I fell asleep yet again, for the millionth time. Only this time I was coming back from the Manchester tolls. I had a brand new BMW. I had a nice job, all this stuff, and I'd fallen asleep behind the wheel. I had smacked the beginning of the guardrail doing over 100 miles an hour because I had fallen asleep. I was flipped upside down. I was ejected out of my car, and I'm still standing in front of you guys today to be able to share my story. And unfortunately, it still wasn't enough. I kept going, and I still kept going. I developed a gambling problem, and this just goes to show you, it started from that one bag of pot that I decided to buy when I was 15 years old. And then it turned into the alcohol, then it turned into the Adderall, then it turned into the meth. And now I've developed a gambling problem along with that. So now, it just doesn't stop. And throughout the course of my addiction, I was just so depressed. I still had a twin sister who cared for me, who kept trying to get me to stop, and I wouldn't stop. Again, I thought, I went homeless for 2 years, before I started selling it, because it took everything I had. I finally, I got arrested last year. Again, I was charged with 2 felony possessions, 2 felony transportations, 3 misdemeanors, leaving the scene of a crime, 2nd DUI, resisting arrest, breach of bail. It was the whole 9 yards. And I'm not that person. I never was. If everybody ever told you who I am, they'll never believe that I was this guy that got arrested and was on the news. And I just want to encourage you guys, you don't have to go through all this. I'm 27 years old, and I feel like I just spoke the life of someone who's 80. It doesn't have to be that way. I just encourage you guys to listen to your parents, man. I know my dad used to always say, you're going to regret not listening to me. You're going to regret not listening to me. And I said, yeah, right. And there's so many times where I can go back and just wish I had just listened. I wish I listened to that guy that spoke in front of you guys today, like myself, that just told you to be careful of these things, and you guys thinking, yeah, right, I'm never going to be that way. It's just pot. I just do it on the weekend. It's just the cigarettes. It's just a couple weekend worry and party, and it doesn't discriminate. Some of your friends might be able to do that. I watch so many of my friends to this day that can still have a 9 to 5, that can work every day, that and go to school at night and then drink on the weekend and then go back Monday morning and continue doing it. But that's not the case for everybody, and I'm telling you, you don't want to take this road. But I'm so thankful to be alive and thankful to be here in front of you guys and sharing my testimony with you guys. That's what I got. So again, in closing, not everyone who tries drugs and alcohol become addicts, like I said, but we should be encouraging our youth. Every one of us should. Open the doors of communication so when those we love begin walking down a path which leads to destruction, that they will be comfortable enough to talk to us about it. I'm not here to tell any parents what to do by any means, but I would really hope that you guys have made it okay for your child, your teenager, whatever it may be, to talk to you about when these things happen. Because, again, it doesn't discriminate. You guys could be the most beautiful parents in the world, and it just doesn't matter. There's just so much going on out there. There's so much that's just socially wrong. That's just so much peer pressure, so many people that don't care, and it drags other people down. Misery loves company. We also have a responsibility to be aware of an ongoing problem and not turn away from it. So see no evil, hear no evil type of way. This will enable us to see warning signs and possibly have some years of destruction. We covered a lot of things tonight, but I hope you guys can walk away with a more vigilant attitude to stay away from drugs. I hope you guys can use us to help you guys throughout your decision making throughout high school. Thank you.
Rob, Aaron, and Gavin from New Hampshire Teen Challenge. Again, let's another round of applause for these folks, right? It's all about hopes and dreams and consequences. That's what they talked about. All of you had hopes and dreams about what you wanted to do. You made some decisions, they turned out not to be the right ones, and there were consequences. Hopes and dreams and consequences. That's what we have to think about, right? And one of you said that you're not special. You are. You guys are heroes to me. Somebody who's been in law enforcement for 40 years, to be able to not become one of the 62,000 people who died in the United States last year, to not be one of those statistics, to turn your life around, to have the strength, the inner will, the ability to see what you needed to do, and then not only lick that one, but come up in front of 100 people and to talk about the things that that no one here in this audience wants to talk about, if it happened to them. So again, you guys are special. You're special to me, you're special to all of us out there, and thank you for coming up and talking to the youth of Bedford to help them make the decisions that you didn't make, and to give them another opportunity to make the right decision. That's so huge. That's so huge. So we've got about 20 minutes, question and answer period. So it's being recorded, and so here's the way this is going to work. Raise your hand, and I would really hope that some of the young folks in the audience would ask these guys some questions. This is your opportunity to learn from ground zero, right? So I'm going to, when you raise your hand, I'm going to just randomly pick people back and forth. I'm going to walk up with the mic, and then so we can get your question on the air, and then they can answer it, okay? So that's how it's going to go. All right, so first one right here.
Well, thank you very much. This has been great. I have heard people say that when you purchase drugs, you not only know what you don't know what you're getting, but also even the dealer oftentimes doesn't know what they're selling. So I'd like you to comment about that. And secondly, specifically, I know that's regarding fentanyl and heroin, but also regarding marijuana, too. Thank you.
Any one of you?
Yeah, definitely. You never know what you're getting. Could be your best friend selling it to you because they don't know what's in it. They didn't typically make the heroin or make the fentanyl, and now the carfentanil is one that is 100 times stronger than fentanyl, and it's yeah, marijuana is no different. I mean, you can put anything in anything, so I definitely just, it's something that if you aren't using it, if you're not around it, if you're not in that with that substance, if you're not using it, if you're not around it, you don't have to worry about it. So it's an added risk to an already dangerous drug. In my case, I overdosed on prescription pills, something that a doctor was prescribing. So to think that something that's being made maybe in someone's basement or bathtub or something else like that, that's even worse, could hurt you even more. So it's definitely something to be aware of.
Someone on this side.
So I just want to clarify, when you say prescription drugs, were they prescribed for you?
When I was 15, I was prescribed Percocet, and I abused them. And then, in turn, the circle that I was with, the people I was with, who I smoked marijuana with, who eventually I can safely say I've lost 10 to 15 friends of overdoses because of, it all started with being prescribed Percocet for me personally, and then it's just a matter of what's in all of your medicine cabinets at home that you don't know about, because that was where a lot of my friends got their drugs, was their parents' medicine cabinets. So I encourage every one of you tonight as parents to go look and be aware of what's in your house, because you could be saving your child. So.
And just so you know, there's a prescription drug drop box in the Bedford Police Department lobby that's available 24/7, 365. So any unused, unwanted medications, it's like he indicated, when you're done, the docs give you too many pills, get rid of them, bring them to the Bedford Police Station, put them in the drop box, we'll get rid of them for you. Next question.
Well, thanks, guys, for sharing your story. I think that's very admirable of you, first and foremost. If I were to ask you if you could say there was one driving factor that led you guys to keep going back to the drugs, would you be able to answer that? Meaning, why are you going and chasing the high opposed to going to work or hanging out with your friends or going to play baseball or any of those other factors? Is there one reason that kept you going back to the drugs?
So I know for me, when I first started out, it was enjoyable. It was the high that we were chasing, but eventually what that turns into is you start facing difficulties in life, problems arise, and the easiest way to not deal with some of those things is to get high, get drunk. You don't have to face your demons. Instead of facing them head on, you use something to mask it. And that for me was one of the biggest things that kept me chasing. Bad things would happen, things that weren't going my way, because as addicts and, we are selfish people. If it doesn't go our way, we lose it, and that would be a reason to just chase the high, to drink again. I don't have to face any issues, right? I can push it off till tomorrow, and then it turns into next week, and then, next month. So that was it for me, it was just not having to worry about anything,
So again, it's routine.
Yeah.
That thing that makes you go back, sometimes it's not always just the drug inside of your body, it's you developed a routine. And when you mess that routine up, it just doesn't feel right. Sometimes the addiction stems from how you use the drug, not even just the drug itself.
Let me put one to any one of you, or maybe all three of you, and talk about, if you can, what the influence of the circle of people that you were around has on you and has on people that end up trying, experimenting, and end up using drugs. So
I know a funny saying for that. If you hang around a barbershop long enough, you're gonna get your hair cut. That's the truth. My dad used to always say, "Your son, you are who you hang out with," and I was like, "Nah, that's crap. That's not true. I'm stronger than that. I can hang out with these people." But it's true. You hang out with them long enough, you're gonna do what they do. It's just psychological. You see somebody, if you see people just doing the same thing over and over again, you're wondering, curiosity, what is it that makes them so enjoyable? At least that's what you think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. My dad said the same thing to me. You are who you hang out with. And if you lay down with dogs, you're going to get fleas. He also told me that one. And I got a lot of flea bites because I hung out with some rugged people. And that's not where my heart really was. I knew I was doing wrong. I knew I wasn't called to be a drug addict. But to go back to your question, for me with opiates, it's different for these guys, I guess, because not different, but they didn't really, opiates wasn't their thing. I physically needed it. If no one here has ever been, call it being dope sick, it is the worst thing I've ever experienced in my life. The physical pain I was in, the emotional wreck I was, it was just, it might sound like an excuse to some people, but I needed it to get out of bed. My body was so dependent on it. But it was definitely, who I hung out with didn't help me to get clean and sober. Now I have people that I'm with every day, they're helping me stay sober, so.
I guess for me with my friend group, I had friends that were able to just do things once, realize they didn't like it, or with alcohol, they were able to control it. What we don't know as humans, though, is that there's some people that have a switch inside of them that opens doors that probably weren't meant to be opened, and that's how it was with me. My friends were able to, smoke a joint, they just didn't really like it that much. They were able to go have 2 beers and play some pool. Me, that wasn't happening. I was full bore. Anything that I did it just to the max, and so it's not necessarily that everybody they hang out with is bad. I mean, there are people that try it. There's people that are going to shock you when they do it. But it's something that it's not even worth, getting into the try, because you don't know what. I mean, I would have never expected. I was planning on going into it for the one time to see what it was like, and then next thing you know, it's 6-7 years of my life. I don't know what the heck's happened, So that's my view on the whole friend circle thing.
So that's the scary part. You open that door, you don't know what's behind it, and you don't know what's going to happen.
Yep.
And for some people, they can close the door, and other people, they can never close the door until you really have to work at it to get that demon off of you to be able to close that door again and walk
Yeah.
away from it. Next question. Go down here.
How long and how hard was it to truly get off of those drugs and not want to do them anymore?
So, I was on drugs, I mean, heavily for 7 years. And I wanted to get off it at the 6 months into it. It literally took until rock bottom. Obviously, there are certain things, I left out because it's not entirely appropriate, but I just want to let you know that it took some serious losses and things that I wish I never did, places I've never been, and sometimes it takes like that, that one arrest or whatever, anything, but you really got to hit rock bottom, and it's a place where I hope you guys, this is why we're here, so you guys will never have to be at. But I'll tell you that it's so much easier to be clean than it is to be high. That's the fact.
Question? Question? Down there? Where? Okay.
After seeing like all your friends like go through like all these experiences with drugs and alcohol, like why did you keep going through all the drugs and alcohol yourself?
I didn't hear it. Can you repeat that?
I didn't hear the question, sorry.
Basically, come on up.
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. Come on up and yell.
Yeah, if we have to do it, you got to do it.
Like after seeing all your friends and just all these people around like being addicted to drugs and like going through all these problems, like why didn't you like stop doing drugs after seeing all of your friends doing?
So with my friends, I had lost them at a pretty young age. I was 15. And with me, it was the whole mentality, oh, that's not going to happen to me. It's just, that's not going to happen. There's no way. That's not in the cards for me. I'm going to be able to, make it. I'm going to control this, and nothing's going to happen. But, there's people out there where they do it one time, and that's all it takes. And, people are dying left and right. And so they're really, that's the mentality that you get once you start getting hooked into these things, that it doesn't matter what's in the way, you're going to do it. And if somebody dies, and bad coincidence, that's what happens. That's how sick your mind gets in the middle of these addictions.
Thank you guys for being here. You all say that you come from a place of really good parenting. Is there any language that any parent or adult in your world used or could have used to help you more on the path to dissuade you in any way, or was it just so gripping that you were beyond hearing the words of your parents and the people who were supporting you?
For me, my parents, like I said, they loved me, they cared about me, they were pretty lenient, but I also didn't let them know really how bad off I was. So I guess to encourage the young people, if you do face something like this, or you face drugs or you choose to use them, which we ask you not to, but if you do not be afraid to go to your parents, because if your parent, they want the best for you. And honestly, my parents, in my eyes, they couldn't have probably told me anything. I was rebellious, and I just felt like I had a control on things. And it's not until I'm 28 years old I realized I didn't. So that's all.
Yes.
Would you tell us how Teen Challenge differs from other recovery programs that are offered? Thank you.
So, Teen Challenge has actually done a study at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. 67% of the guys or women that go through Teen Challenge are tracked 5 years after graduation, doing a 15-month program, has a 67% success rate of remaining drug and alcohol free. Most other programs, it's like a 4 to 6% success rate. Most other programs are 30, 60, 90 days. Most other programs you're paying $30,000 just to stay there for a month, and then they just kick you out. Teen Challenge has a transitional living period. They set you up for success when you're done. They allow you to work while you're in the program the last couple months to get back on your feet, and they give you another 6-month place to stay down the street. Still getting you drug tested, still keeping you accountable. That's a big thing that Teen Challenge does. They hold you accountable. And they also offer a restoration program that if you do slip up, you can come back and do another 6 months. And mind you, if you can't afford this program, it's absolutely free. We do a lot of fundraising. We do a lot of work. We work hard for the city. You'll see us everywhere. Sunshine, sleet, whatever it is. We have a shoveling contract with Case. We're at the Merrimack outlets shoveling all hours of the night with smiles on our faces. So this program differs from there because I'd say because of the time. So
I think to go along with it too, it's the support system. I'd been to a 30-day program, and as soon as I get out, I'm back ripping and running because they'll take your money, they'll give you a piece of paper. This is your aftercare plan. But at Teen Challenge, you have a support system. You have people that are consistently checking in on you, making sure you're doing all right. Always welcome you into the house. Like as soon as you graduate, you can stop by the house at any moment. You could stay there for the entire day, hang out with guys, and just be in the right state of mind. Whereas other places, it's like, see ya. So that really helps differentiate it as well.
So it's like the back end of the group that you were hanging with when you were doing drugs. The flip side is that they're really not your friends, but these are your friends.
Yes, absolutely.
These are the people that make a difference in your life, right?
Yeah.
That's the big difference. That's the big change.
I can say that it's safe to say in my life, I've had a lot of friends. I'd call them fair weather friends, if anything. But when I go back home, because in the program at 3 months you get to go home for 24 hours, 6 months is 48, 9 months is 72. When I go home, no one that I ever did drugs with, drank with, I haven't heard from them once since I've been gone for 9 months. Not one of them has contacted my wife and asked how my daughter is. Do they need anything? Do they need help? The only 2 friends I have at home are sober. One of them's a nurse and one of them works at a college. So I can say that, again, like you said, really those people who were your friends or you think are your friends, really you'll see that there's no fruit from that friendship once the hard times comes and you can't offer them anything. There's guys in this program that I never would have met if I didn't come here from New York, like these 2 guys that are, I plan on never losing contact with. And that's through sobriety, you know what I mean? So for me, that's a huge part of the program. Like they said, the brotherhood, the bond that we have in this program, it's not built on money, it's not built on drugs, it's not built on alcohol, it's built on sobriety. So
that's huge, huge. We have time for a couple more questions. Yes.
First of all, thank you so very much for being here. So what advice would you give to the young people here who will probably sooner or later be in a situation where someone pulls out pot or pills or a bottle of alcohol? What would you say to these young people directly?
I would say, in those situations, it gets tough. Temptation is a very hard thing to deal with. But if I could go back, I would put myself right in that position, and I would, figure out all the plans that I have for my life, what goals I want to achieve, what direction my life is currently heading in, and allow that to be the reason that I say no to those things. Because once you open those doors, you can lose it all. I mean, I don't know a lot of people that have lost everything over like pot or something like that, but they lose a lot of finances. They lose everything. You really can mess up your plans. And one thing can lead to another. So I would definitely look at where I want to be in life, what my goals are, and is this really going to benefit me in going to college and getting a degree someday?
In the way back.
What would you say to parents that feel like it's no big deal. That they smoke pot in college, so it's not a big deal for their kids to smoke pot, or they want to throw the prom party at the end of the year, and we'll take all the keys and all the kids can, do their thing. We'll make sure everybody gets home safe, or we'll just have a big sleepover. What do you say to that kind of mentality?
I would say, why do you want to expedite their future demise? Because if that's an excuse, oh, well, they're going to do it at college, or oh, if we take their keys, it's going to be fine. You really need to look in the mirror as a parent, because I have friends whose parents did that, and their son isn't alive today because of that mentality, because he chose to get in a car drunk and he's not alive anymore. So you're trying to fool yourself if you think that any drug use, any alcohol, for anyone, if you're inhibiting that, I just implore you to do otherwise, because it's such a bad idea.
It also just puts you in a bad situation too, because I've been in a lot of situations like that, and there's times where you don't know what a kid's drinking habits are. I mean, you might know the typical crowd, and these guys can crush back a 30 rack, and there's nothing to worry about. But they bring over the new guy, then he's winding up with alcohol poisoning, and next thing you know, you got furnishing charges, and it's not just him that's hurting. You can really screw up a lot of things for yourself that way too. That's the little things that don't get thought about. It seems like, oh, cool, it's the party house, but it might not be your own kid, but you could really be screwing somebody else's kid up. So.
Couple more questions. Okay, yeah.
Does Teen New Hampshire have females in the program?
So yeah, we're separated between men and women. We are opening a women's home in Vermont, which would be the closest to New Hampshire, and we have one in Rhode Island. We also have an adolescence home for girls that are under 18 years old. It's like I believe it's a 6-month program. They're in Southern Mass. I can't disclose the information because it's for their safety. But if you need to look into something like that, you can just get a hold of any Teen Challenge administrator on one of our phone numbers, and they can direct you to one of them. But we are divided up between men and women.
You have another person over here?
If you would have listened to your parents, do you think it would have ended up any differently than your whole entire experience with drugs and stuff?
Oh yeah, yeah,
buddy.
No, that's if I, even as fun as it seems on the other side, it's not. It may be fun for a moment. It may be fun for a day, maybe even a weekend, but I can promise you it's not much fun after that. Listen to your parents. I know it probably means nothing coming from me, but if you don't want to end up down that hard road, listen to your parents, please.
We got time for one more.
What's that?
So unless they say it's okay to have a party at high school.
Yeah.
What are your feelings about the legalization of pot?
So that's not like, I'm not for it. That's my own opinion. I don't, but I do understand there's circumstances, but that's not what, I'm not, like I said, we're not professionals by any means. We're not health clinics, but we know our background with pot wasn't good.
Yeah.
So if that can answer your question.
So, Gavin, Aaron, Rob, thanks to them. They're bringing their information to you directly from Ground Zero. Thanks, guys, for coming.